Hello, this is Wes Fryer. Today is August the 6th, 2024. This video is for my Communitarian Prepper channel. I want to talk a little bit about having an emergency water supply, and I'm going to talk specifically about repairing holes or damage that you may have in your water containers, and the importance of having a commercial grade, kitchen grade sealant, not just some regular sealant. So when we lived in Oklahoma City, we had ice storms, we had tornado threats, and for whatever, I think maybe even goes back to Lubbock when we were there. I used to have some 55-gallon drums for setting back water. COVID, certainly made me more aware of the need to have stuff set back in the pantry and emergency supplies. Overall, the focus of this channel is encouraging us to follow the guidelines of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and basically have, at least a few days, if not a few weeks, set aside of food and just being prepared for things to happen. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on in the news. And one of the things that here in the United States I have taken for granted my entire life is just turning on the tap and having clean water. And so I've done some other videos in the past about water purification, like backcountry water purification, that kind of stuff. But what I want to talk about today are containers and then repair. So one of the things to keep in mind is that, if the power goes out and it's out for quite a while, whatever water is in the water tower that is feeding your location is not going to be replenished. They may have backup batteries and things like that to function, but if electricity is cut off at the water tower, that water tank is going to drain. So one of the best things to think about, even if you do have water set aside like this, is to fill up your bathtub. Now, one of the things that I've learned about recently, and I'd never heard of this before, is that there are relatively inexpensive water bladders or water containers that you can get for a bathtub. One of the issues for long-term water storage or even short-term storage in a bathtub is going to be contamination. You want to do everything you can to make sure that the water you have is pure, it is not contaminated, and it's going to be safe to drink, obviously. So that can start if you don't even, and this is something, by the way, that we have 3 kids that are now out of the home, and we have one that's in Houston. Obviously there's more hurricane danger there. It's not very expensive, and I'll put a link in the description, and I'll also show it here on the side what that looks like. But this is just a plastic, essentially, bag that has a cap on it, and it's meant to just stay in your bathtub. But anyway, that's one of the first things to do. Now, how do you know if the power is going to be off for a long time? You really don't, unless the circumstances or other kinds of information that you have lead you to believe that. Okay, so we don't have 55-gallon water tanks or water barrels anymore, and there's really some advantages to that. I recently purchased, and I'm going to talk about the setup, this water barrel which is a rain barrel. This thing will hold 47 gallons, and the instructions, say you need to make sure that you set this up so it can hold 450 pounds. Water is heavy, right? So if the only thing that I had was a water barrel, number one, that's going to pose some challenges of how to get that out, but also transporting it. And we need to think not only about the water that we're going to be using in our house. This channel is the Communitarian Prepper channel. I was thinking about making this the AI Prepper channel. I think I'm going to I might do that, but I'm thinking about definitely using AI in some different ways to keep track of my inventory, to be able to manage the things that I have. And so one of the things that we need to be able to think about is, sharing, right? Because all of our neighbors, you're not going to be able to take care of all your neighbors, but there may be some family members, some friends, and maybe a few neighbors that you want to try to help out, and they might not have a water container. Especially in a long-term situation, everybody, unless you have a well at your house, you're going to need to have the ability to go get water and bring it back. So these containers I picked up actually from a fellow at a farmer's market in Edmond, Oklahoma when we lived there. I picked up these 6-gallon or 6.5-gallon containers, and these are pretty good. One of the issues, though, that I'm going to work on today is fixing this. And so what I have ordered, and I had to special order this, it wasn't in Lowe's or Home Depot in stock, but it only took a couple days to get in. This is a commercial food grade sealant. It's 100% waterproof. It's made for sealing things, but it is food grade. And that is critical because you do not want to use some kind of chemical sealant that is not approved for use with, for things that you eat and drink, like a kitchen. You absolutely do not want to, put that on your water container. So this is one water container. I don't know how this got this hole, but there's this very well-defined hole here that I've got to seal. And so I'm going to do a time lapse here in a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and get this in my caulk gun, and I'm going to seal this up. And this is just really important to keep in mind. Okay, so food grade sealant. The other thing that I'm going to do that I haven't done in the past is I'm going to mark with a label these containers when I am putting the water in them. I do not know. We've been here 2 years, and I'm sad to say that I haven't been regularly changing out this water. So FEMA recommends every 6 months you go ahead and change out the water that you have in storage. And so part of what I'm doing, by the way, when is the best way to set aside water for an emergency? It's when there's not an emergency, right? When your tap and your hoses and everything like that are running fine. Because one of the most important things I have started to think about when it comes to emergency preparedness is if we have some kind of a crisis, something big happens, whether it's a natural disaster or some kind of cyber attack or other kind of physical attack, something happens and the power grid goes down or water stops flowing or something's going on. I do not want to go to the store. No one should want to go out of their house to the store, especially if something starts to get prolonged. We can all relate to this, having recently lived through COVID 4 years ago, that the shelves of the supermarkets get bare very quickly. This is the time to prepare before we have a crisis. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead, empty all these out, fill them up. I'm going to mark the date when I am putting these in. A couple more things to say, and then I'm going to go ahead and dump these and get these ready. You want to try and store your water containers in a cool, dark place. These are opaque. These are not clear. I've used before, like for backpacking and I guess camping more, but backpacking as well, some like collapsible clear water containers, and those are great for really short-term stuff like camping. But for any kind of longer-term storage, you don't want stuff to be growing inside, and so having these opaque and then having them in a dark place, all of that stuff, it's really good ideas. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just time-lapse this and put some music to it, and then I'll say something at the end. But if you're interested in getting more resources related to just emergency preparedness, my website is Communitarian Prepper, and you can find that at comprep, COMMPREP.wesfryer.com. I hope this is helpful to you. If you've got other suggestions, I do have some other videos. Who knows, maybe I can put one in here that'll link about like backcountry water purification and things like that. And you can check those out. Let me know in the comments what feedback you have. I'm sure there's people who know far more about this than I do, but I do know that when we do not have an emergency, that's the time to prepare. We need to make sure that we are refreshing and changing out our water supply periodically. Good to have a variety of different water containers around. Get them marked and do what you can to make sure that they are well sealed and they're going to be well stored in good condition, so that if you need it, you can get out and use it. right, well, this was a task that I've been needing to do for quite a while. I want to point out that this is the water jug we actually use when we make funnel cakes. And so like this isn't a permanent storage water container because it is translucent. It wouldn't be good for that. As I've said, you want to kind of have these opaque, but got everything cleaned up, got these 5 filled up. I actually picked this one up for like $5 at Walmart, but it didn't have a lid. So I've got to order or buy a lid for that, or 3D print one, but I think I'll probably just find one. But then I've got the caulk on the other 2 that had the leaks, and I'm going to be leaving those for, it says 12 hours. I'm just going to leave them for 24 hours before I go ahead and fill those up with water. And then we'll have all the water containers filled, and then we'll be good for a while. Okay.